You ever watch a sporting event and wonder who's the meathead headbutting dudes in helmets?
Or the guy spraying water through a player's face mask?
Welcome to the Jock Sport Podcast. I'm your co-host, Chris Virtue, alongside Collin Francis.
We'll provide our experiences and insights on what really is required amongst the support systems of elite-level teams and athletes.
We're one strength coach
and one athletic trainer,
peeling back the curtain on what really goes on underneath those bleachers. Are you ready, bro?
I'm ready, man.
Yeah, buddy.
Let's get it.
Yeah, make it bounce, make it bump. Always give the party people what they want. The speakers be banging highs, mids, and lows. Make you want to start getting busy on the floor. All the fly girls screaming out. The DJs rocking and shocking the house.
Imagine those G League bus rides, right? Like, holy smokes.
I think a lot of us come to a point in our career, like if you haven't hit it yet, you will at some point, to where it's like, what are you doing? You start to have a family, you start to have kids, you've been working for an organization like her for so long, you get there, and then it's not exactly what you envision. Like, sometimes people say they have a dream job, but once you have the dream, sometimes that becomes a nightmare. You know, that's why they always say, like, don't meet your idols, don't meet your heroes, because if you do, you learn who they really are, and it kind of paints a different picture. It's the same thing with these jobs, man. It's especially you get to that high level and like what you're at in the NFL, the scrutiny of every single decision and the pressure and anxiety that each decision is on you. And you've got like we tell the youngins, you got to develop a thick skin.
You figure the head athletic trainers in these professional leagues are CEOs of multi-billion-dollar medical systems with the amount of doctors, therapists, chiropractors, massage, MRI, like the amount of people they manage, the amount of medical bills they generate, the amount of injuries that they work through on a daily basis. You know, at the professional level, we're working with workers' comp stuff, federal labor laws. Like these are CEOs of healthcare systems out here. They're not just head athletic trainers or directors of sports medicines. And people, I think, forget how every single day they could make or break a decision that could, you know, really, really affect someone's, you know, way of life. Right. We always, you know, I was always told when I was an intern, what's the most important thing an equipment manager would have to do on game day? Right. Not to talk down to equipment managers, but maybe change some cleats out, maybe change a helmet out. Very important. It needs to be done. But what's the most important thing an athletic trainer might have to do?
Stabilize a broken neck.
Yeah. CPR, save a life, broken neck, AED, treat the code. So you got to bring your shit every day. You got to come correct. You can't half-ass any aspect of your job at any moment. And you add the money that these players are getting on top of that stress. Come on.
Take that job too. I mean, she worked up G League, long bus rides. You get elevated. COVID year, you win the NBA title. Less than a year later, you're out. From the top.
You get the team through COVID. You get the
through
team
COVID,
NBA championship.
and you win an NBA championship.
Peace. Thank you. Here's your ring.
Whatever you were doing worked last year. Whatever it is this year, it didn't work.
You know, and I hate that now there's no women head athletic trainers in the NBA. I think that was important for the organization, but I think that's a great inspiration for the younger athletic training students not to really, you know, put yourself in. But it also, you know, it's something that I wanted to ask you about. I thought about this when I was at the Wizards game. I was watching the Wizards Sixers, and I was thinking, man, at that level, your expertise in maintaining cardiovascular fitness while rehabbing an injury has got to be hard. If you have a point guard that rolls their ankle, you know, if you have a linebacker that rolls their ankle, we don't really have to incorporate cardio as much into their rehab and therapy. But if you have a point guard, I mean, they're running up and down all day.
Some will run 6 to 7 miles in a game.
Like, so if you have a 4-week, 5-week, 6-week injury, like you've really got to maintain that cardiovascular level of fitness.
And most of the time, too, you get those 4, 5, 6 week injuries. Most of the time, they're happening about 2/3 of the way through the season. So then they're out. But what happens around that 4, 5, 6 week mark? It's playoff time. Time to go.
what tricks did you use in basketball? Or do you know if, is it just, are they using like upper body ergs? Are they doing just stuff in the pool? Are they maintaining as best they can? Are there any secrets to it? Or is it just, hey, as soon as you're able to, let's get the cardio in?
We used a lot of water treadmill in basketball. So we had one of those in Cook Hall, and, if somebody rolled an ankle or something like that, that was the first thing they were doing. And then we were just progressively adding a little bit more resistance as they were going on. And then as they got closer to coming back and they were keeping, their heart rate up on underwater treadmill, doing some of those protocols, then we would do some strength, like with the athletic training staff, we would do some change of direction drills and things of that nature. And then, even in some of our other sports, you'll start to do conditioning, or even in practice, and you're going every other. So you're going at about 50% going every other rep, because everything is so bang, bang, explosive and pop, kind of like in football. But yeah, that was kind of our protocol, to where, get them. Now we have the Ultra G treadmills, because they have to run. And even running doesn't, like, especially in basketball, you could be a Ironman triathlete and be in amazing shape, or you can be a 800 runner and, amazing metabolic endurance. And you play basketball and you could be gassed after a minute, 2 minutes, just with the amount of running, change of direction and contact, all that stuff, to where you have to play the game to be. It's like back in, and this is back in the 80s, but the Last Dance, and when Jordan was out his 1 year, when he had his only significant injury of his career, and they capped him in a certain amount of minutes and stuff, and they stuck to it. Like, that's, someone like him is going to play through that, but that could be definitely detrimental to an athlete.
I'd love to hear that from our listeners. If there's any tips and tricks to make sure that cardiovascular level stays the same for any of the sports, right? You figure soccer players as well. When you're coming back from a 6-week injury, like I went to the DC United game, Mark Ingram he's now a part owner of DC United. So he invited me down to the game. It was awesome. Soccer at that level, at that speed, boom, 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 boom. The ball's moving so fast. It was with 2 red cards, penalty kick, exciting game. But when they return to play, they got to play 60 plus minutes, because you can't just sub.
I'd say that. I was going to ask you this, because it goes along the same line. You watch the Amazon All or Nothings, the behind the scenes shows on Amazon?
All or Nothing I did not watch, and actually I've never seen a season of Hard Knocks.
Man, you need to watch some of that. You did. So on Amazon, All or Nothings, they have a few. There's Michigan football, the Philadelphia Eagles, Arizona Cardinals, but then they do the All Blacks rugby. There's a cricket team they follow for a season, and then one of them is 2 of them actually. There's the Man City. They followed them for a year, and then they followed Tottenham the year of COVID, like going in, and they got Josie, whatever his name is. I'm blanking on his last name. The coach, he just got actually let go this year. But Marino. Sorry. No one invests, I believe, more money into the game, the rehab, the technology, the sports science, the doctors, all of that than the English Premier League or those big soccer leagues. Like, they are big multi-billion-dollar businesses. They have all these, youth club level league. Like, it's basically just a huge system that they just keep churning athletes out of. But they have these huge facilities, and it's everything you could possibly want. And yet they are some of the most banged up motherfuckers in all of sports. Now, you could say it's because, it's soccer, but an injury is an injury. A hamstring is a hamstring. A broken hand is a broken hand. These guys, and I don't know enough about Premier League soccer. Maybe someone else can tell me. I mean, I know a little bit. And I know there are times around Christmas and stuff, they'll play 3 games in a week, and that's really poor scheduling, because they'll do Premier League, Champions League, like Euro. There's all these different leagues and games they play in. It's like, what is the real season? Because they're playing in 4 different leagues as they're going through it. It'd be like the NFL. It'd be like the Ravens. They play in the NFL, the NBA, and the Major League Baseball all in one season. They are the most banged up sons of bitches in all of sports, but they have such huge systems around them for the very fact of not being injured. And I'm just wondering, and then you could take someone like the All Blacks, who even though they're one of the premier teams in the world, They got a trainer that's probably been there 30 years and smoking cigarettes in the clubhouse. And he's like, they have folding chairs in their locker room, and they're tough bastards. And, they'll get banged up every now and then, but I mean, not many times they're sitting out.
That would be an interesting stat. Does the increase in financial support for medicine also increase the amount of injuries you have? Right? If you go looking for it, will you find it? So does that All Black not get an MRI on the hamstring? So he plays through it and realizes he can. And the Hotspur, gets an MRI the same second. And now it has.
And nowadays too,
out.
Coaches are losing out more and more on the medical side. Like back in the day, it'd be the coach could pressure the athletic trainer into saying it's good, you can go. Whereas now they're losing those battles more and more often too. So I don't know where. I think also
as athletic trainers get a better job at explaining themselves and justifying, and team doctors start supporting the athletic training staffs a little bit more than they have in the past.
I'll tell you, watch that All or Nothing though. There's a point where they're talking about one of the players, and Josie is all over the head physician. He's saying no, but you could read body language if you've been in athletics enough, and you could read body language. You can know when there's wiggle room or you can pressure in that, and it's funny to watch some of these and that was going to be one of my questions I wanted to ask you, because I've been watching a few summertime, you get into baseball movies and stuff, and then I saw around draft time when you were at the draft and stuff, and I saw Draft Day again, and I'm like, you see some of it and you're like, yeah, this could happen, but then you watch some of it, you're like, this is some of the dumbest shit this would never happen. Like, what movies have you watched sport-wise in the past where it's like, it could happen? Because my wife's a doctor, and she'll watch these doctor shows, and she's like, this is ridiculous. This is just none of that.
So she watches ER and cringes.
Well, no, ER. She doesn't mind ER. She never really watched this show, but it's funny. Have you ever watched the show Scrubs?
Occasionally.
Yeah, that was actually, especially the first couple seasons, was rated as one of the more realistic medical shows, because it was just like bedpans and bowel impact, all that kind of stuff is not sexy, not glorified. It's not like heart saving surgery, like heart transplants and all this stuff, or helicopters landing on the roof and saying stat. It was just some of the mundane, crappy part of medicine. It's like, yeah, that happens.
I recently started picking up ER and The Practice. And the first thing I thought about ER was if I was a doctor at this hospital, I would leave. You had a naked man bombard you one day. Then you had a helicopter crash into the building. Then you had a 64 car pileup. Then you had an Ebola outbreak.
Oh, that's this all hospital, these shows, man.
This hospital is a war zone.
Even you watch, you and I, we're both West Wingers. We love West Wing, but it's man. The president was shot. His daughter got kidnapped. There's all kinds of just stuff that just doesn't happen on a normal basis.
That's real. The West Wing is real.
It's real. We wish it was. These sports movies, sometimes you watch them and it's like, this would never happen. This is the dumbest shit I've ever seen.
I'll tell you, I love Draft Day. I just think it's so campy.
I love Kevin Costner. It's so campy, and he's got no one's drafting that DA. Oh, draft him no matter what. Bullshit. And the way they do trades and stuff, I'm like, that. Come on.
Yeah, our process is so analytical, so objective. So at this point, all the powers that be that are making decisions are not doing it on the fly. They're doing it educated with 4 or 5 years of film to watch, 4 or 5 years of statistics. They dive into their high school stuff. So, nothing is ever done on the fly, I think. But I like Draft Day. It makes it look very luxurious, makes it look very glamorous. But really, it's not like that at all. It's looking at a computer, crunching numbers, calling people, looking at film, getting the medical histories. Any given Sunday.
Because people bring up Any Given Sunday, and it's like, some of that is up there. I really like Any Given Sunday. The Replacements, although filmed in Baltimore, unfortunately. What's your chest with metrics? Willie Beeman.
There you go.
Girls
Unfortunately,
screaming.
it's very unrealistic. I assume that some of the recruiting trips are like the water boy, but I'd have to ask some of these coaches, because I know these coaches be going into some spots now and being just like, where am I? Hey, but you can play football. Hey, there's a place for you. Right. And I think one of the 30 for 30s talked about how Howard Schnellenberger would go in the middle of the hood in Miami and be like, hey, I'm the coach. Let's go. Who wants to come to college? Right. So these recruiting trips have got to be crazy. So I'm sure they got some great water boy type stories. They never really show the trainers on the movie, so I get upset. But
I'll tell you what, though, you know who made it into draft day in the movie? The strength coach. Because there was a weight
all
room
glitz,
scene with
no
that
glam.
quarterback. I'm just saying. And he actually, when he was coaching in the weight room, I'm like, I know a lot of strength coaches that is them. But then when he like pulled the GM aside and he's like, yeah, he's put on 20 pounds of muscle, but I'm like, if they are just finding this out on draft day that the quarterback's been working out and has been doing like that's a problem. And then he calls
Some of
the
the
coach
scout
at
is fired,
Wisconsin. He calls the coach at Wisconsin, and it's like I'm like, oh man, this doesn't happen. The greatest football movie of all time has got to be The Program, though. Legs at the table.
Hey, you see the one? It's from the Bloomington people. My All American.
No,
it's from the guys who
I'm looking at it
made
with
Rudy.
Rudy and Hoosiers.
And Hoosiers, yeah, they made this one My All American about this guy, Freddie Stanwick, famous University of Texas player. They actually touch his jersey touch his statue before they run out on the field every day in their stadium. I think it was a bad movie, probably critically unacclaimed, but they had Frank Medina in there, who was the first athletic trainer at University of Texas. Might not be the first, but he was definitely there for a long time. He was an athletic trainer and a strength coach.
Was he the Funky Cole Medina?
Who's that?
You said Medina, and I go to Funky Cole Medina.
Oh, no, but hey, you know what else I was watching that I think you should watch? A&E just started this professional wrestling.
I watched them all. I get caught up in, like, last night was the Ric Flair looking for his butterfly robe. I eat that shit up, man. I grew up with WWF. I love it.
Did you see the Mick Foley episode?
Yeah, Mick Foley is the man. Nice guy. The Undertaker is in because they have two. They have the biography, and then they have the looking for the
one that I want.
The artifacts.
The artifact that I want is that choker from Junkyard Dog, baby. That motherfucker. Boom, that big old thing. I want that.
Did you ever go to do it like a WWF like match?
No, my dad and I used to always watch it. He used to have his little descrambler box he'd put on top of the cable box and hide it from me so I wouldn't watch anything else.
I went once in person. I think they came to Valpo, and Hulk Hogan wasn't there that time, but Ultimate Warrior was there, Undertaker, all of that. And it was I ate that up when it was growing up. It's just fun watching a lot of that stuff too. It was kind of like The Last Dance, because when you grow up with it, it's like the memorabilia. You see it and you remember. Like, I was watching The Last Dance, and my wife would every now and then like pop in and see, like, I'm watching it and be like, yeah, watch, he hits this 3 right here. Yeah, they were down 7 and watch this. And it's like, it's like, you remember some of the stupidest stuff. And it's like, no, it's just the stuff I grew up with. So when we're watching the WWE or WWF, I call it WWF, and the kids are watching it with me, because we'll do like commercial breaks. We wrestle. So we'll wrestle on the bed. And then when it's back on, we all watch it. But I'll be like, yeah, watch this. I remember this cage match. Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Heartbreak Kid. It was the best.
I think every single child should be forced to watch the Undertaker Mankind Hell in a Cell.
That Hell in a Cell was great because you thought Foley died.
There should be like, you know how they have required summer reading? There should be required summer watching, and it should be that.
Yeah, I mean, Shawn Michaels and the Undertaker cage match was great. Shawn Michaels just completely bloodied up. It was cool. Volleyball a couple of years ago, we went and we traveled to South Florida. And I'm like, for some reason, I like remember the name. Like, we were in the arena, their basketball arena. I'm like, this just sounds so familiar. And I look it up. I think it was the 1995 Royal Rumble when Shawn Michaels was thrown out of the ring, but held onto the rope and his feet came like that close to touching the ground.
Didn't touch.
And he snuck back in and he won the Royal Rumble. I was like, this happened right here. So I sat in the arena like nothing was going on. I just sat there basking in it. I'm like, this would have been cool to be back here back then.
We may need to get the athletic trainer for the WWE on the call. I don't know who it is. I don't know who that person might be, but we should get them on here and learn about the ins and outs of professional wrestling.
No, there's got to be some. Yeah, they were doing the Ric Flair butterfly robe, and they're like Ric Flair would lose stuff all the time because he would go out and get drunk after the shows and then go home with some random woman, and then the next day be missing his Rolex and missing his shoes or not have any pants. And it's like that's how he probably lost the robe. So it was missing for 25 years, and then it went up on eBay randomly. And it was his last time that it was known that he worn that robe was in Johnson City, Tennessee. And the eBay account that sold it was in Johnson City, Tennessee. And it turned out that it was left at a motel in Johnson City, and they kept it in the lost and found, and they waited months and no one claimed it. So then this manager kept it. And then over time he developed health problems. So his family sold it. But it was missing. It was out of circulation for 25 years, but it's just crazy how some of those things come back around.
I think that's awesome. The guy who hosts it used to be a football player at University of Maryland. So I also like that too, how he was a college football player and now he's succeeding. And he's in WWE next, but he's succeeding as a TV host and kind of these athletes branching out and making more for themselves. So I like that too.
Well, even so, the guy posing as Kurt Angle's son nowadays, he was a wrestler at IU. He's big time in the WWE now.
So he was in the WWE when I got there under a different name, right? Mm-hmm. And then
so the storyline they created he's Kurt Angle's son, and it's like he ain't Kurt Angle's son, but yeah, he was a big.
I actually watched Kurt Angle wrestle at the Olympics.
Did you? What do you think of the Olympics coming up? We got some IU swimmers going now and some divers.
I love the Olympics. I think the Olympics are some of the best sporting events around, right? First of all, the feel-good stories, the what's that guy's name? Bob Costas. The Bob Costas.
Bob Costas is great.
He'll make me cry to a sports story in a heartbeat. So I love it. Swimming is my favorite.
This was brought up in an interview lately. When do you cry in Rudy? Because you cry when you watch Rudy, or you don't have a soul.
I'm a movie crier. So
I have two movies. I get choked up at a lot of things, and now that I have kids and I have a family, even more. Like if a father has I can't watch movies where like the kid gets sick or something bad. I can't watch those movies anymore. So I'll like sift those out through the trailers. But so there's two movies that I will actually really get choked up on. One of them's Rudy. So when in Rudy are you getting choked up?
At this point, Rudy now, I think when I first probably saw Rudy, it was earlier, but now just the end. Like, because I know it's coming, I anticipate it. So now it's at the end of the movie, I get teary-eyed. Boom! It's not as nostalgic as for me.
It's when he gets into school, when he gets the letter and he finally gets into school. That's when you cry.
That is, look, I'm tearing up just thinking about it. That is a good section it's for me. Remember the Titans? It used to be as soon as that little daughter starts the voiceover at the very beginning, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, boom! Like Gary Bird's car accident,
strong side, left side.
Thank you. Tearing up, like Blind Side. I cry in Blind Side. Sports movies will get me.
Yeah. Yeah, sports movies, they pull the heartstrings. You know the other movie that gets me crying?
Glory Road.
No.
The Big Green.
No, it's not a sports movie.
Fast and Furious 9.
Kind of. No.
What's the second one?
Avengers Endgame. Seriously, when Iron Man dies... If you haven't seen Avengers Endgame, I'm sorry I spoiled it.
Spoiler alert.
They played the kid at the beginning. He has a 5-year-old and he can't go back and lose what he gained and all that stuff. And then at the end, he gives it up for everybody. He died. And then there's Doctor Strange there going like that. And he knows that gets me.
I made a solid attempt to watch every Marvel movie during COVID.
I love the Marvels movies, man. Not all of them. I mean, they're kind of, some of them are campy, but like I like all that. Plus, my kids like it, so I try to gear them towards watching those because I actually enjoy them as opposed to watching Monsters University for the 17th time in 2 weeks.
I got up to, and unfortunately, you know, my least favorite is Captain Planet.
You mean Captain Marvel?
Excuse me, Captain America, the first.
Yeah,
America.
Yeah. The Thor ones now are getting really good.
Deal with the CGI skinny.
Yeah, in the beginning.
Chris Pratt, when they make him skinny, couldn't even look at it.
Chris Evans.
Chris Evans. Damn, I'm getting all the names wrong.
Star-Lord.
Chris Pratt is Star-Lord. There you go. Talk about soundtrack.
Oh, yeah. Those soundtracks are great. Every time that song, like that song will come on the movie, my kids are like, "That's your song, Daddy." Because I'll usually just, if I were a Marvel superhero, like if I had to identify with one of them, it would be Star-Lord. Just as an overall attitude and way of life.
Quirky, go get him. Balls to the wall. Let's go for it. I give you that. Is there one song that's in your training, in every single training mix you've ever made? Because there is one song from that movie that is on everything I ever do.
In that movie?
It's in the second one. So treatment at Indiana University started at 6 a.m. 6:01 was late. At 6 a.m.,
Brandy, you're a fine girl. I'm guessing it's not that one. What a good wife you would be.
Mr. Blue Sky.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Blue Sky's good.
6 a.m., we're playing Mr. Blue Sky. It's going to be a great day. You also knew that if you walked into the training room after Mr. Blue Sky was starting, that you were already late. So,
yeah.
But
sometimes, go ahead.
No, the one assistant, John Wicks, he hated me. Anytime this song would come on, he'd walk out of the room. He'd be like, "Collin, you play this on loop every single day." I loved it. I love it.
Yeah, I don't know if there's just one song that, I mean, there's a lot. We play so much music in the weight room. You just get, a lot of songs just get old.
Yeah.
But back in the day, it was if Kid Rock was playing, it's like, oh, Virtue must be out on the floor lifting. Or if Dropkick Murphy, so if a bunch of Irish music was playing and everybody walked in, like I'm weird too, because like I'll listen to Pantera, I love listening to Metallica when I lift. I'm a big fan of Metallica. Rick's a big fan of Black Label Society, as am I. But I like listening to weird shit when I lift because we just listen to either the latest rap or some of those like old school like heavy metal stuff over and over and over again, where it's like I want to listen to a little Chris Stapleton when I'm lifting, or I will throw on the Bee Gees or some weird stuff because I would rather get my hips moving and dance a little bit while I'm putting myself through pain, as opposed to just putting myself through pain and headbutting the side of the rack.
Now there's another question that I think the people should answer. What you get these ultra marathoners, these ultra triathletes, these super people. What the hell are they listening to that makes them do that? Because I can't find a song that makes me run for 15 minutes on a treadmill.
They're not allowed to listen to anything. So you do an ultra marathon, you're not allowed. There is no music. Even on the lower level ones, like you do Boston Marathon, you do any of these normal marathons, you're supposed to in like the mini Indy and stuff. You're not allowed to listen to music. I did a half Ironman up in Michigan 2 years ago, and that's one of the rules. You get flagged 5 minutes. Like you have to actually get pulled over in a pit stop for 5 minutes if they catch you with any earpiece in. You can't.
Is it like a safety issue?
Yeah, it's a safety issue because a lot of times, especially in those, you get like half Ironman, you're going 70 miles. And a lot of that's through, like a big portion of it is biking on the roads, and you're with regular traffic.
Oh shoot!
So that's where usually people die. Most people in Ironmans die either in the swim or on their bike because they got hit. So it's a big safety issue, and it gets like you can't draft in those races, and it gets really congested. Now you take like the Iron Cowboy. You know what he did recently? Didn't I tell you? 100 Ironman distances in 100 days.
Wow.
And he ended up doing 101.
I seen that. I think when I last checked, it was like 88. So he finished the 101.
He finished 100, and they had a big ceremony, this huge thing at the local stadium and stuff, because he did them all local. And then, just to be a dick, he woke up on day 101 and he's like, all right, I'm out. And like, nobody was on the last day, as it was getting towards the end. The public was always invited to come ride with them, come swim with them, come run with them. On day 101, he was basically by himself. And he's like, just so you motherfuckers know, 101, that's for me. I was like, that's awesome.
So I know what I would say as a medical person if somebody came up to me and said, hey, I want to run 100 triathlons in 100, I want to do 100 triathlon distances in 100 days. All right. I would tell them, your body will not be okay. Your tissue's not going to recover as fast as you need it to do to be competitive at these speeds. Right. Those would be all my answers. Would be caution, caution, caution. Right. But obviously he did it. So what somebody comes to you as a strength coach, hey, I want to do 100 triathlons in 100 days. What's your first response?
Do it. Do it. That's so many of that too. When you do things like that, sometimes people announce those things, and it doesn't have to be 100, 100 Ironmans. It could be, I'm going to run a marathon, and you're going to have 95% of the people, when you say that, be like, no, you're not. Like, there's going to be so many hurdles in your way. And a lot of people just quit because they want maybe to get attention in the beginning that they're going on this quest. But when you go for those, like even when I did the half Ironman, you have to do so much of it alone. Now you have a lot of support around you and stuff, but when you're training, you're alone. Most of the time you're in the pool alone at 6 o'clock in the morning. You're running your 15 miles alone. You're biking a lot. A lot of that is a lot of self. Like, you have to be self-determined, and you have to accept a lot of shitty days when you're training for something. It's the same in the Olympics. Yeah, you have a whole staff around you. You have stuff like that, but you're talking about people that compete at a high level, and they're like, all right, I'm done with that. I want a medal. I'm going to do it again. And I don't have to train every single day like a motherfucker for 4 years just to have an opportunity to do it again. Like, it takes a special breed of person to do that. And that's why, they'll do a documentary on this 100 in 100 from the Iron Cowboy. But even in the first one, a lot of it came down to when he was like, well, like when you struggle, listening to podcasts and stuff of him describing how he got through it. And he's like, well, I said I would do it. So I had to do it because I said I would do it. I think that's a big thing for me in current state of athletics, endurance, all that. You got a lot of people that want to put stuff on Instagram and say, hey, look what I'm doing. But to do some of these big things, to work in athletics, to run a marathon, to do an ultra marathon, it takes so much work that nobody sees, that you have to be invested in it and keeping your word. I think a huge part of mental health is persevering. And a lot of people like to have, I had a lot of it, like you go through a marathon, I had a lot of adversity. Well, you chose that. So it's not adversity. There's a lot of adversity where, so your parent dies, or you have a kid die, or you lose your job, like things out of your control. That's adversity. It's the people, like, perseverance is when you're like, I'm going to do that. And no matter what happens between point A and point B, it's getting done. And there's so few people that are like that nowadays, to where it's like, I'm going to do an Ironman, or I'm going to do a marathon. But 90% of the people that say they're going to do it don't end up doing it because they reach a little bit of resistance, whether it's from the outside or from the inside, and they chalk it up as adversity, and it's too hard and they're done. Like, it's about the unsexy hours and mornings and late nights that nobody sees. That is what make athletics what it is. And the same thing on Broadway, same thing in NASA, same thing, running for office, all of that stuff. It's the people that can go through the times in between the Instagram posts and go at 100%.
And it's like, these athletes are set in the Olympics to perform on prime time for 4 years. But I think what people forget is that swimmer who graduated from college 3 years ago has been training on their own dime for the last 3 years to get there. There's not a lot of money in this Olympic sports stuff to fuel them. So that perseverance they have to achieve their Olympic dream is even greater, right? You look at these people who have done 3-4 Olympics in a row, right? The volleyball pair, the old women's softball players, these people who were just perennial every single year, and they were having regular jobs on the side. They were being mothers, being fathers, being, employees. And to me, it's just so impressive to watch somebody get out there and swim a personal best, even if it's not a world record or an Olympic record, but they chose that time to swim the fastest they ever have. Right.
You look at our some of our IU swimmers or in that IU swim club that are going to the Olympics this year. COVID hit last year. It shut down all the public pools. They swam in a pond. They literally
Cody Miller's crazy.
No, they all did it. I mean, they all did it. Like Lily King was in that pond too. They literally just found a pond. They're like, oh, swim in this pond. Like that's just what it's like. But it's because they said they were going to do it.
That's what it takes.
There's so many people that go, I'm going to run a marathon. And then they have 10 miles to run and it's 5:30 a.m. and they're a little tired and it's raining outside. I'll get in this afternoon. Nope. And then there goes the marathon. Gone. Whereas the Lily Kings of the world, they'll be up at 4:30 that day and they'll be right because it's raining harder at that time.
I used to have a swim coach that said, if you hit the snooze button, you've lost the day. It is his whole philosophy. Like the second you decide, okay, I'm actively going to hit that snooze button, take the easy way out, at the very first decision you make that day, it's going to be a long day.
Oh man, it's all of it. You go back to what you were talking about in the beginning on what you're doing in your downtime and all that stuff, or are you earning your raises, or are you earning your place on the staff? It's so easy and passable and acceptable to be mediocre nowadays. It's easy.
Oh yeah.
It was and Goggins is extreme. And I think, and a lot of our listeners know David Goggins, but there was one, I think he said on the Tom Ballou when he was on with him and on YouTube. And he's like, yeah, okay. You could be the smartest motherfucker in a room of 15 people. But if they're all dumb people, what does it mean to be the smartest person in that room?
You're not wrong.
A lot of people put limits on themselves to where, people are capable. People are capable of doing 100 Ironmans in 100 days. It's stupid. It's stupid, but they're capable of it.
What I think James Lawrence taught us, the little Iron Cowboy, is the same thing I kind of learn every single time I watch, me, a West Side, any kind of thing about West Side. We as athletic trainers put a lot of limits on the strengthening, a lot of limits on the rehab, a lot of limits that are just that, limits for no reason. You see, you need to protect, you need to be smart about it. But there are some times where you can push the body to do some crazy things. And with the right mindset, with the right support, with the right science, I think some aggressive decisions can be made. Right? Maybe Louis Simmons is a little too aggressive for the medical side. Maybe 100 triathlons is a lot. But look, like the body is resilient and able to accomplish a lot of things if the mind can set forth and do it.
Yeah, that's the key.
Like his body didn't break down after 101 days. I'm sure it wasn't easy, but his body is still going.
It's funny following him now because that's his hardest thing was when he stopped. His body rejected it. It's almost like he was on drugs. And then all of a sudden, some of his most painful days were the week following it. Cause they flew him out to UCLA and he was getting a bunch of work done on him to do testing and see what the post results were. But yeah,
I think that would be interesting for our populations if they really have all the data and can break it down. You see he's partnered with Garmin, he's partnered with Therabody. If he can release his recovery techniques, if he can say, I use a Normatec every third day, I did the ice bath every second day, whatever he did to recover and train and maximize his performance, that would be awesome to read.
Let's hope he does.
Yeah.
All right, man. What do you got next?
So actually I am on a little hiatus from work until July 11th.
A lot of tequila be being poured during that
lots
time.
of tequila being poured. Tomorrow, I'm hosting a little meet and greet for some staff, some coworkers, and then Wednesday I hit the Outer Banks for a fishing trip. So
There you go.
It's officially off season.
Get away while you can.
What do you guys got?
Oh, we're working. What we do?
You're about to be in season. No, about to be in season with the rookies.
That's right. In season, we're having a lot. We're having a really good time right now. We've got a big gaggle of interns that we've created this whole new. I mean, the work that we put into our intern program is far and above most programs in the country, and they're getting a hell of an experience. They're a lot of fun to work with. You get a lot of athletes. They're folding back through. Football's going full bore. I mean, it's just a lot of energy coming out of the weight room. So it's fun because COVID sucked being away from there was a point a couple weeks ago when everybody was finally back and, you're just sitting in offices and arguing over different data or research and talking shit to each other. And that's the stuff you miss, man. So good to be back at that. I
miss coming down the hallway and speaking to you guys, man. I really do.
Anytime you want to visit. Oh, what about the Colts? I was just at Monster Trucks and I was thinking about you. Do the Ravens visit the Colts this year?
I do not believe we go to Indianapolis.
I think you go to Chicago.
We go to Chicago, to Denver, to Miami, to Vegas.
There you go. I might have to hit you up on Chicago.
Chicago? Come on up, man. Yeah, but you can't wear Bears clothes.
I'll for sure be wearing Bears clothes. I can't be wearing the shirts you sent me. I am not an XL. I'm a double XL.
Are you really?
I'm what they classify as husky.
Husky, hefty. Somebody called me hefty. I was like, I'm not hefty.
I'm not.
I'll take thick over hefty. All right, dog. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, take it easy, brother.
All commentary and opinions provided by the Jock Support Podcast are solely our own and do not express the views or opinions of our respective employers. No listener of the Jock Support Podcast should act or refrain from acting on the basis of information on this podcast without first seeking a medical professional. All liability with respect to actions taken or not taken based on the contents of the Jock Support Podcast are hereby expressly disclaimed.
That thump in your trunk, and when the DJ spin it in the club, it bump. Steady as Freddy, cool as a breeze. I keep the party rocking with the greatest of ease.